Eli Sanderson adjusted his credentials nervously as he navigated through the throngs of various species and beings converging at the Interstellar Cultural Symposium. The space station, a grand structure orbiting the neutral planet of Havera, bustled with life and chatter, the air thick with anticipation and the hum of alien dialects. "Dr. Sanderson," a voice called out over the din. Eli turned to see Dr. James Park, his longtime colleague and friend, approaching with 2 steaming cups of what Eli hoped was coffee. "Thought you might need one of these." "James, you're a lifesaver," Eli said, accepting the cup gratefully. He took a cautious sip, finding the bitter Terran coffee grounding. "What's the crowd like today?" James glanced around, his eyes twinkling with excitement. "Diverse. We've got delegates from over 50 systems. And guess what? The Zephyr have sent someone too. First time they've mingled publicly at an event like this." "The Zephyr? That's rare indeed," Eli mused, scanning the crowd, curious about the famously reclusive species. As they made their way to the central dome where the keynote would be held, a figure detached itself from a nearby group and approached them. The being was tall and slender, with iridescent skin that shimmered under the station's lights. Eli's breath hitched slightly. This had to be one of the Zephyr. "Dr. Sanderson, Dr. Park, I presume?" The figure spoke, their voice a smooth melodic whisper. "I am Lyra, the delegate from Zephyria. I was hoping to discuss your work on xenobiological ecosystems, Dr. Sanderson." Eli was momentarily caught off guard by her directness and her knowledge of his work. "Yes, I'd be delighted to discuss it," he managed, slightly flustered. "Your presence here is quite the honor." Lyra smiled, a gesture that seemed both alien and enchanting. "I find human research intriguing. Your perspective is uniquely expansive. Shall we walk to the dome together? I'm eager to hear more about your recent expedition to the Outer Rim." As they walked, James chimed in with questions about Zephyria, carefully veiling his curiosity in diplomatic niceties. Lyra answered with an openness that belied her species' reputation for secrecy. "You managed to keep much of your culture hidden from the galaxy," James noted. "There's a lot of mystery surrounding your people." "Indeed," Lyra replied, her eyes bright. "We find that understanding comes not from observation alone, but through shared experiences and genuine interaction. We prefer to open our doors slowly, allowing for true connections to form." Eli felt a surge of respect for her approach. "That's refreshingly thoughtful. In human realms, we often rush to share, sometimes to our detriment." Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps tonight, after the formal sessions, you might join me for a Zephyr cultural event here on the station. It's a small gathering, but it might give you both a deeper insight into who we are." "That sounds wonderful," Eli responded, genuinely intrigued. "It's an offer we can't refuse, right, James?" "Absolutely," James agreed, his earlier reservations giving way to anticipation. As they reached the entrance to the central dome, Eli felt the earlier nerves dissipate, replaced by a budding excitement about the evening ahead. He turned to Lyra, his scientific curiosity now piqued by the promise of new cultural insights. "Lyra, I look forward to understanding more about the Zephyr tonight. And hopefully," he added, "we'll find common ground in our mutual pursuit of knowledge." Lyra's smile was enigmatic yet inviting as she responded, "Dr. Sanderson, I believe we already have." The conference hall was alive with the low buzz of conversation as Eli and James followed Lyra to a quiet corner. Despite the technological marvels surrounding them, it was their dialogue that sparked the most energy. "So, Lyra, your interest in ecosystems, does it stem from Zephyr environmental challenges, or is it more academic?" Eli asked, hoping to delve deeper into her expertise. Lyra's eyes flickered with a light that seemed to pull from the very stars themselves. "Both, actually. Zephyria is a planet of vast oceans and delicate land masses. We face significant environmental fluctuations that demand not just scientific understanding but real interventions." James, who specialized in planetary engineering, perked up at this. "That's fascinating. We've been experimenting with terraforming techniques on Mars that might have applications elsewhere. Perhaps there's room for collaboration." Lyra nodded, her expression open and interested. "I would like that. Cross-pollination of ideas between our species could lead to sustainable solutions. What you learn modifying Mars could indeed help Zephyria. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of another human delegate, Dr. Leo Thompson, a cultural anthropologist. Eli, James, I thought I saw you here. And this must be the Zephyr delegate, Lyra, right? Leo extended his hand in greeting, a human custom that Lyra graciously accepted. Correct, Dr. Thompson, Lyra responded, her tone warm. We were just discussing potential collaborative efforts. Leo's interest was instantly piqued. Collaboration? You know, there's an anthropological angle to that as well. Understanding each other's cultures is pivotal. I'd love to hear more about Zephyr Society. Lyra smiled, her demeanor reflecting both patience and enthusiasm. Perhaps you would be interested in attending a session of our music tonight? It's a window into our soul, you might say. Music? Leo's eyes brightened. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The group continued to exchange ideas, their conversation weaving through topics from environmental science to cultural expressions, each finding joy in the shared excitement of new perspectives. As they spoke, the crowd around them seemed to fade, the buzz of other conversations melting into the background. Shall we make our way to the dome for the keynote? James suggested as they wrapped up their intense discussion. We could continue this afterward. Lyra nodded. A splendid idea. Dr. Sanderson, Dr. Park, Dr. Thompson, shall we? As they walked, Eli felt a kinship not just with his human colleagues, but with Lyra as well. Her intelligence and openness challenged many of his preconceptions about the Zephyr. The keynote was a vibrant affair, filled with presentations on technology and philosophy from across the galaxy. But throughout the spectacle, Eli found himself distracted, his thoughts drifting back to Lyra's invitation to experience Zephyr music. He was beginning to understand that this evening could mark a pivotal moment, not just professionally, but personally as well. After the presentations, as the crowd began to disperse, Eli, James, and Leo reconvened with Lyra. Ready for a different kind of symposium? Lyra asked, her voice carrying a playful undertone. Lead the way, Leo responded, his usual scholarly demeanor replaced by a childlike anticipation. As they followed Lyra through the corridors of the station toward the Zephyr cultural event, Eli felt the weight of the day lift off his shoulders. Tonight was about connection, about understanding through the universal language of music. Tonight, he sensed, they were on the brink of something truly extraordinary. The nebulous Six Lounge was bathed in soft, ambient lighting, casting gentle shadows across the faces of its diverse patrons. The air hummed with low conversations and the occasional clink of glasses. Lyra led Eli, James, and Leo through the crowd to a reserved area where instruments unlike any the humans had seen before were set up, waiting to be played. Lyra turned to her companions, her voice tinged with pride. Welcome to what I hope will be a memorable experience. Zephyr music is not just auditory, it's sensory. Let your minds relax and your senses take over. James chuckled softly. I'm all for new experiences. Let on. As they settled into their seats, a group of Zephyr musicians took the stage, their movements graceful and fluid. The first notes drifted through the air, ethereal and resonant, capturing every attendee's attention. Leo leaned in, whispering to the group, "There's something about this music. It's like it's speaking directly to the soul." Eli nodded in agreement, feeling the vibrations not just in his ears, but throughout his entire body. "It's visceral," he murmured, more to himself than to anyone else. Lyra explained, "Our music uses frequencies that resonate with both the environment and the listener. It's a form of communication and communion for us, sharing our innermost vibrations with our surroundings." As the performance continued, Eli found himself drawn deeper into the experience, the soundscape painting vivid pictures in his mind of oceans and skies, mirroring the tales Lyra had shared earlier about her home world. During a particularly harmonious crescendo, James turned to Lyra, his curiosity overcoming him. "How are these instruments made? They sound unlike anything I've heard." Lyra's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as she detailed the craftsmanship involved. "Each one is crafted from the flora and fauna of Zephyria, designed to be in harmony with our world. Much like your violins and guitars are made from specific woods for their acoustic properties, ours are made from materials that enhance their natural frequencies. Leo, ever the anthropologist, added, "It's fascinating how music can bridge cultures. What we're experiencing is more than a performance. It's an invitation into the heart of Zephyria." As the concert drew to a close, the room erupted in applause, the audience visibly moved by the experience. The musicians bowed, their faces alight with joy at the reception. After the applause had died down, Lyra turned to her companions, her expression earnest. "What did you think?" Eli was the first to respond, his voice full of genuine admiration. "It was transformative. I've never felt anything like it." James agreed. "It's incredible how music can transcend language and culture. Tonight was a profound reminder of that." Leo, always looking to delve deeper, suggested, "I'd love to learn more about the cultural significance of each piece. Perhaps over dinner?" Lyra nodded, pleased. "I would like that very much. There's a place nearby that serves dishes from various galactic cultures. It would give us a chance to decompress and discuss more." As they left Nebula 6 and made their way to the restaurant, the bonds of friendship and understanding among the group had clearly deepened. They walked together, each lost in thought about the evening's revelations, eager to continue their conversations and explore the new perspectives they had gained. After the ethereal experience at Nebula 6, the group found themselves seated at a round table in a quiet corner of Galer's, a restaurant known for its eclectic mix of galactic cuisines. The ambience was a soothing balm, the dim lighting and soft instrumental music in the background creating a space that felt removed from the bustling energy of the symposium. Leo was the first to break the reflective silence. "Lyra, the emotional depth of your music was profound. It's as if each note was crafted to speak a universal language." Lyra smiled, touched by his observation. "That's very insightful, Leo. In Zephyrian culture, music is more than entertainment. It's a form of historical record and emotional expression. It connects us across generations." Eli, who had been quiet, chimed in. "I was particularly struck by the last piece. There was a narrative there, almost palpable. Could you share what it was about?" Nodding, Lyra began. "That piece is called Voyage of the Silver Tides. It tells the story of a great migration across our oceans under the light of our twin moons. It's a journey of challenge and discovery, a metaphor for life's trials and triumphs." James, always keen on the technical aspects, asked, "How do you train to create such specific emotional resonances? Is it something you learn, or is it more intuitive?" Lyra considered his question for a moment. "It's a bit of both. Our musicians are trained from a young age, but they must also possess a deep emotional sensitivity. They learn to channel their feelings through their instruments." As the waiter brought their orders, the conversation shifted from music to food. Leo was curious about the dishes they had ordered, each representing a different planet's cuisine. "This one here," James pointed to a steaming dish in front of him, "is from the agricultural colonies of Vespera. It's supposed to be made from the roots of the yarrow tree, known for its healing properties." Eli, intrigued, took a bite and was pleasantly surprised. "It has a robust flavor, a bit earthy but very satisfying." "Lyra, what did you choose?" Lyra's dish was colorful, an array of textures and hues. "This is a traditional Zephyrian feast dish. It's made from sea plants and seasoned with spices from our coastal regions. It represents the bounty of our oceans." As they tasted each other's dishes, their conversation deepened, moving from cultural expressions through food and music to broader discussions about their civilization's philosophies and societal structures. Leo, pondering the discussions, noted, "It's remarkable how our different backgrounds shape our perspectives yet our core experiences, challenges, triumphs, celebrations, are so similar." Eli nodded in agreement. "It's a poignant reminder of the commonality of sentient beings, no matter the origin." "Lyra, your invitation tonight has opened more than just a dialogue about culture. It's a gateway to understanding each other on a fundamental level." Lyra looked around the table, her expression one of contentment. "I'm glad to hear that. It was my hope that by sharing a piece of Zephyria, I could bring us closer, not just as delegates or researchers, but as beings seeking connection." As the night wound down and the dishes were cleared, James proposed a toast to new friends and deeper understanding. Glasses clinked in the soft lighting of Gaylor's, each person reflecting on the unique journey that had brought them together and the paths they would explore in the days to come. The night had indeed brought them closer, turning professional curiosity into personal bonds that promised to enrich each of their lives. The walk back to Eli's quarters on the station was a silent journey, each step echoing slightly in the hollow corridor. The air between Eli and Lyra was charged with a newfound closeness following their evening of cultural immersion and shared experiences. As they approached the door to his quarters, Eli paused, turning to face Lyra. "Tonight was incredible, Lyra. I feel like I've learned more about Zephyria in a few hours than I have about some places in years of study." Lyra's eyes shimmered under the corridor's lights. "I'm glad, Eli. It's rare for me to share so much of my world with someone outside my species. I appreciate your openness and respect." There was a moment of hesitation, a palpable tension that seemed to draw them closer. Finally, Eli broke the silence, his voice soft. "Would you like to come in for a while? We could talk more privately." Lyra nodded, her expression conveying both nervousness and anticipation. "I would like that, Eli." Inside, Eli's quarters were modest, with personal touches that spoke of his life and travels. A shelf filled with artifacts from different planets, photos of various landscapes, and a small collection of alien flora. Lyra looked around, her curiosity evident. "You've seen so much, Eli." He smiled, walking over to a small cabinet. "I try to keep mementos from my travels. Each one has a story, much like tonight's music." As he poured them each a drink, Lyra continued to explore the room, stopping before a large window that looked out onto the starry expanse. "It's beautiful out there," she murmured. Eli joined her by the window, handing her a glass. "It never gets old, the beauty of space. It's like a constant reminder of how much there is to see and learn." They sipped their drinks in comfortable silence, watching the stars. After a moment, Lyra turned to face Eli, her gaze intense. "Eli, when I said that understanding comes not just from observation but through shared experiences, I meant it." Eli felt a surge of warmth. "I know, and I feel the same. There's something about tonight that feels significant." Lyra set her glass down, stepping closer. "Humans talk about moments that change everything. I think this is one of them." Without another word, Lyra reached out, touching Eli's face gently. He responded instinctively, leaning into her touch, his eyes searching hers for confirmation. Finding it, he whispered, "Lyra." That single word was enough. They drew together, their first kiss tentative, exploratory. As they pulled back slightly, Lyra whispered, echoing her words from earlier in the evening, "Human, stop staring. It's time to act, not to dream." Laughing softly, Eli pulled her close again, their next kiss deepening as they lost themselves in each other. Their hands explored, touching and learning the landscape of alien and familiar. Eli marveled at the softness of Lyra's skin, the unique texture and the warmth that seemed to pulse beneath. As they moved together, the room around them seemed to dissolve, leaving only the sensation of closeness, the warmth of contact, and the gentle rhythm of two hearts learning a shared beat. Later, as they lay side by side, looking out at the stars, Eli spoke, his voice a whisper in the quiet room. "I never imagined." Lyra nestled closer, her voice just as soft. "Neither did I, Eli. But I'm glad we're here." Their shared experience transcended the boundaries of species and space, a moment of profound connection fostered by the willingness to explore not just the universe but each other. As the first rays of artificial sunlight began to filter through the windows of Eli's quarters, casting a soft glow over the two entwined figures, Eli awoke to find Lyra watching the light play across the room, her face thoughtful and serene. "Good morning," Eli murmured, his voice rough with sleep. He brushed a strand of hair from Lyra's face, marveling at the peace he felt. Lyra turned to him, her smile gentle. "Good morning, Eli. Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in a long time," Eli confessed, propping himself on one elbow to better see her. "How about you?" "Very well, thank you," Lyra replied, her eyes reflecting the soft light. I was just thinking about how different this light is from the sunlight on Zephyria. It's softer, less intense. Eli nodded, intrigued. You've mentioned Zephyria's twin moons and oceans, but you've never described the sun. What's it like? Lyra's expression became animated as she began to describe her world in more detail. Our sun is fierce, and its light is a brilliant silver. It bathes everything in a stark, vivid hue that makes the water shimmer like a blanket of diamonds. Fascinated, Eli listened intently, his hand finding Lyra's, their fingers intertwining naturally. It sounds beautiful, he said. I'd love to see it someday. Lyra squeezed his hand. Maybe you will. I would like that, to show you my world. Their conversation drifted then to dreams of visiting each other's planets, of sharing their worlds as they had shared the night. It was a conversation full of possibilities, weaving together dreams that felt attainable, grounded in the deep connection they had formed. After a while, Eli sat up, pulling the sheet around him as he turned to face Lyra more fully. Lyra, what happens now? For us, I mean. Last night? It was incredible, but I'm not sure what it means for you, for your people. Lyra sat up too, matching his serious tone. In Zephyrian culture, sharing such closeness is significant. It's not just a physical union, but a spiritual one. It binds us in a way. But I know that humans have different customs. Eli's heart raced with the implications of her words. I don't want this to be just a passing moment, Lyra. I feel something for you that I haven't felt before. I want to explore where this can go, if you're willing. I am, Lyra said without hesitation, her hand reaching out to cup his cheek. Last night changed things for me too, Eli. I want to see where this path leads, together with you. Encouraged, Eli leaned into her touch, his mind racing with plans. Then let's make a promise, here and now, to explore this together. To learn about each other's worlds, to bridge our cultures. Not just as scientists, but as more. More, Lyra repeated, the word hanging between them, filled with unspoken promises. As they dressed and prepared for the day, the connection between them remained palpable, a gentle current that buzzed softly with new energy. They agreed to meet later at the symposium to attend sessions together, to continue the public part of their roles even as their private connection deepened. Walking Lyra to the door, Eli felt a surge of optimism. I'll see you in a few hours. And Lyra? Yes, Eli. She turned, her hand on the door. He smiled, a genuine, heartfelt expression. Thank you for trusting me, for sharing your music, your culture, and your mourning with me. Lyra's smile matched his. And thank you, Eli, for being exactly who you are. As the door closed behind her, Eli was left with a warmth that felt like the glow of Zephyria's sun, fierce and brilliant, promising a future as vivid and real as the light that now filled his room. The conference hall buzzed with the energy of mingling species and scholars as Eli and Lyra, now noticeably closer, navigated through the crowd to attend a seminar on intercultural cooperation. Their hands brushed subtly, an unspoken acknowledgement of the new intimacy between them. As they found their seats, Dr. James Park spotted them and waved, making his way over. Eli, Lyra, perfect timing. There's a panel starting soon on the role of interspecies relationships in galactic diplomacy. Thought it might be up our alley. Eli grinned, glancing at Lyra. Sounds like it's made for us. Let's check it out. The trio settled into seats just as the panel began. The speakers included experts from various backgrounds, each sharing insights on how personal relationships could foster broader understanding and peace across the galaxy. As the discussion opened for audience questions, James nudged Eli. Why don't you share a bit about your experience? It's relevant, and it'd give us some real-world insights. Eli hesitated, but Lyra squeezed his hand reassuringly. It's a good opportunity, Eli. Our experience could offer a unique perspective. Encouraged, Eli stood up, clearing his throat. Thank you. I'm Dr. Eli Sanderson, a xenobiologist, and beside me is Lyra from Zephyria. Over the past few days, we've had the opportunity to deeply engage with each other's cultures. We've found that these personal connections have led to a greater understanding not only of our individual cultures, but also of how we might address larger environmental and societal challenges together. A murmur of interest spread through the crowd. A fellow panelist, Dr. Leo Thompson, who had joined the audience, added, "I can attest to the value of what Dr. Sanderson is saying." Witnessing their exchange of ideas has been a reminder of how our interstellar relationships can mirror the cooperation we hope to see at a diplomatic level. The panel continued to discuss the implications, with many agreeing that personal stories like Eli's and Lyra's were pivotal in turning theory into practical, actionable strategies. After the seminar, as the room began to empty, a younger delegate from a newly contacted species approached Eli and Lyra. "Dr. Sanderson, I was inspired by your talk. I'm Joran, from the planet Calypso. We're just starting to engage with the intergalactic community. Any advice on how we might foster such beneficial relationships?" Eli exchanged a look with Lyra, then responded, "Joran, it's all about openness and respect. Start by really listening to what other species value and fear. Find common ground and build from there." Lyra nodded, adding, "And don't underestimate the power of sharing something personal, like music or food. It opens hearts and minds in ways formal diplomacy can't." Joran nodded earnestly, taking notes. "Thank you both. I hope we can replicate your success on Calypso." As the crowd dispersed, James clapped Eli on the back. "Nicely done, both of you. How does it feel to be accidental diplomats?" Eli laughed, his gaze meeting Lyra's, full of shared secrets and mutual respect. "Surprisingly natural, James. It feels like this is just the beginning." They decided to grab a late lunch together, walking to a nearby eatery that served dishes from across the known galaxies. Over shared plates, they continued their discussions, not just about diplomacy, but about how their unexpected relationship could serve as a model for others. Eli mused aloud, "Imagine if our personal stories could really be the seeds of galactic peace." Lyra smiled, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "Why just imagine? Let's make it a reality." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, bridging the space between personal affection and professional aspirations, each enriching the other. As the artificial sunset began to color the sky outside, Eli, Lyra, and James remained deep in conversation, planning their next steps in what had become their joint mission. The final day of the symposium had arrived, marked by a flurry of goodbyes and last-minute exchanges of contact information. Eli and Lyra found themselves at the departure docks of the space station, a mingling area of farewells and promises for future collaborations. The enormity of their parting began to sink in. "Lyra, these past few days have changed everything," Eli said, his voice tinged with melancholy as they stood watching a ship prepare for departure. "I can't believe it's time to say goodbye." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of sadness and determination. "I don't want this to be our last goodbye, Eli. What if it isn't? What if this is just the beginning?" Eli's heart quickened at her words. "What are you suggesting?" "I've been thinking," Lyra began, taking his hands in hers. "Why not continue this journey together? Not just through messages and virtual meetings, but truly together. Would you consider coming to Zephyria?" Eli was taken aback. The thought of leaving his world behind was daunting, yet the prospect of exploring Lyra's world with her was thrilling. "Lyra, are you serious?" "Absolutely," Lyra affirmed. "I want to show you everything. My world, our culture, our challenges. I want you to see the silver sunlight and the oceans beneath our moons. There's so much more to share, and I can't think of anyone else with whom I'd rather share it." James, having approached during their conversation, added his thoughts. "Eli, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, not just personally but professionally. The insights you could gain, the real-world experience in xenobiological and cultural exchanges, it could redefine your career." Eli nodded slowly, his mind racing. Turning back to Lyra, he asked, "And what about us?" "Us?" Lyra smiled warmly. "I think we've only just started to explore what us could mean. I'd like to find out, without the looming end of a symposium to rush us." The announcement for the final boarding call of Lyra's ship crackled over the intercom, jarring the moment. Eli looked at the ship, then back at Lyra. "Give me a moment?" Walking a few steps away, Eli called up his supervisor via his communicator, explaining briefly but passionately about the opportunity. After a tense few minutes, he returned to Lyra, a lightness in his step. My supervisor supports it. I've been granted a sabbatical, part research, part diplomatic mission. Lyra, I'm coming with you. Lyra's joy was palpable as she embraced him tightly. This is the start of something incredible, Eli. Not just for us, but potentially for relations between our species. James clapped Eli on the back, his eyes twinkling. Don't forget to send updates. And remember, you're not just an ambassador for your planet now, but for all of humanity. With their bags in hand, Eli and Lyra approached the gate. Eli paused, taking one last look at the station. Ready to explore? Lyra took his hand, squeezing it affirmatively. Ready. Together. As they boarded the ship, Eli felt a surge of excitement, tempered by a profound sense of purpose. The stars beyond called to them, not just as lights in the vast expanse of space, but as beacons for a shared future, one they would navigate together.